Hi, I'm Sarah, the daughter who was never enough, the one they laughed at in public, especially that day at the terminal when Dad said, "She can't even afford economy." Everyone heard it. Everyone saw me shrink behind my ticket. But what they didn't see was what was waiting on the runway. That was the day their laughter stopped, and my silence spoke louder than their fortune ever could. It was early. Too early for the kind of performance my family had perfected over the years. JFK buzzed with quiet morning tension, people half awake, half lost. I stood behind my father in line, arms crossed, eyes down, as if shrinking made me invisible. "She can't even afford economy," Dad said loud enough for the nearby TSA agent to glance over. Layla, ever the star of our family circus, laughed, clutching her first-class ticket like it was a golden trophy. I didn't flinch. Not anymore. I'd learned the price of reacting. Instead, I glanced at my shoes, hearing every dinner conversation where I was the afterthought, every holiday where I was the one who never quite made it. The quiet one, the sweet girl. Code for failure. Layla flashed her designer purse as if the logo made her relevant. Dad adjusted his blazer like he'd raised a legacy, not a hierarchy. And me? I said nothing, just breathed. People don't see the quiet ones until we own something they can't buy. And years ago, I started a company in aviation logistics. No press releases, no LinkedIn updates, just steady building, quiet. While they laughed, as they glided toward the VIP security lane, Dad handed me a crumpled paper ticket. "Later flight. Don't miss it." I held it like it was a joke from a bad sitcom. The attendant scanned it, frowned. "They didn't check you in?" That pause, the slight hesitation in her voice, made something in me sting. A family behind me whispered. I saw their eyes scan my worn coat, my silence. Flashback. Layla once raised her glass at a birthday dinner. "To success!" Everyone cheered. No one looked my way. I looked at the wrinkled paper. It wasn't just a ticket. It was every overlooked moment, every smile I'd forced, every time they made me feel optional. I smoothed it out, almost lovingly, and whispered, "That's fine, I'll wait." I found a seat away from the gate, near the big windows. Planes rolled in and out like scenes from other people's lives. My mind wandered. Mom used to say, "The one who holds their silence owns the room." She believed in the long game. She believed in me, when no one else did. Dad and Layla walked toward the gate, laughing, loud. Layla even waved, as if I were some airport employee beneath her attention. I watched them bored, not with sadness, not with envy, just calculation. I didn't need to win their approval anymore. I'd built my own runway. My breathing slowed. Everything around me felt suspended in a quiet rhythm. That's when I noticed him, a man in uniform. Tall, polished, holding something in his hand. "Miss Monroe," he said, eyes warm. "Your jet is ready, ma'am." He wasn't asking. The terminal hushed. Layla, halfway across the jet bridge, turned. Her laugh caught in her throat. I stood, calmly. The crumpled ticket slipped from my hand, and I didn't bother to catch it. I walked with the officer toward a private corridor. No words, no announcements, just silence heavy with clarity. They thought I couldn't afford economy, I thought. I just never needed it. The quiet was louder than their jokes. At the gate, people watched, some confused, some curious, but no one stopped me. Respect doesn't come from shouting. It comes from what you've built while they were laughing. The door of my jet closed with a soft thud behind me. Layla's stunned face, frozen just outside the glass, was the last thing I saw. They finally looked at me, but too late to sit beside me. What they didn't know was that this flight wasn't about leaving. It was about arriving. The invitation came in a thick white envelope with raised gold lettering, classic Monroe style. I already knew what it was before opening it. A family recognition brunch. Celebrating Layla's business milestone. That's what they called it. What they meant was a carefully staged family performance where I'd be tolerated, not welcomed. It was hosted at a rooftop venue in Manhattan, a place I'd passed a dozen times but never had reason or desire to step into. I showed up alone. No grand entrance, no hand to hold, no smile rehearsed. Just me. Gray dress, plain flats, a scarf Mom once wore. I walked in, scanned the room. The air buzzed with curated chatter and champagne. I made my way to the tables, tracing the little white name cards lined like soldiers. Monroe, Taylor, Carter, Layla, even Layla's assistant. But not mine, not Sarah. I asked one of the staff quietly, "Excuse me, I think there's been a mistake." "I don't see my seat." He looked confused for a moment, then checked a clipboard. "They said you might not show up, so we didn't want to block a seat unnecessarily." I didn't argue. I smiled politely, nodded once, and walked over to the corner near the buffet where I could see but not be seen. I picked up a mimosa, held it like a shield, the kind of event where silence was safer than truth. Photos were already being taken. Layla stood in the center, surrounded by Dad and the others. That same pose we used to do as kids, but now I was just the background blur. Invisible again, I thought. Like wallpaper they didn't want matching the furniture. The lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the podium. Dad stepped up, clearing his throat like he was preparing for Congress. "We are here to honor the pride of our family, Layla Monroe. A woman who embodies drive, vision, and everything this family stands for. Everything this family stands for." The slideshow behind him began to play. Childhood photos, family vacations, holiday dinners, all of them. Without me, not a single frame, as if I'd never existed. Layla took the mic, brushing a fake tear from her cheek. "Thank you, everyone, especially Dad, for believing in me, for showing me what it means to lead, and to those who took chances when others hesitated." Not a glance my way. I remembered 7th grade. I won a regional science fair. First place. I called Dad from the gym, my voice shaking with pride. He told me we had to leave early, to beat traffic. That was the first time I learned success doesn't always earn you a seat. I looked around now and realized this wasn't forgetting. This was erasure. I stepped outside onto the terrace. The city stretched in every direction, louder than the voices inside. My phone buzzed. "Ms. Monroe," my assistant said, "your pilot's confirming wheels up in 30? You good to go?" "Yeah," I said, calm and steady. "I'll wrap this up soon." Layla came out then, her heels clicking like punctuation. "Didn't expect you to show," she said, sipping her drink. "It's not really your scene." I turned to face her. Neither were the last 15 years. Yet, I was always there. She blinked, just once, then smiled the way people do when they've already dismissed you. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was done. I went back inside, let the waiter refill my glass, but didn't touch it. I watched the family laugh, celebrate, praise each other. Then I quietly walked toward the elevator. One of the servers caught my eye, just a nod, but it said enough. He'd seen it too. The way families can turn absence into a strategy. I slipped him a tip. You see what others pretend not to. In the mirrored elevator, I looked at my reflection. I saw me, clearer than I'd ever been in that house, in that name. The doors closed. It felt final, not an escape, but a choice. You stop asking for a seat at the table the moment you realize you could buy the building. But just when I thought I was done, the past sent me a message I couldn't ignore. By the time I got home, Manhattan had gone quiet. I stepped into my apartment, kicked off my shoes without thinking, and set my purse down on the marble counter like it weighed more than it should have. The place was dim, just the soft glow from the hallway light I always forgot to switch off. I pulled out my phone. One missed call. My father. No voicemail. He calls when someone makes him feel guilty, not when guilt finds him on its own. I didn't call back. Instead, I stared at an old message he'd sent last year, still marked unread. Sorry about missing your event. Things got hectic. A shrug in text form. A practiced excuse. I tapped the screen again. This time, it was a video my assistant sent earlier, just a short clip of my jet waiting on the runway, engines humming against the wind. I watched it play twice. Let the sound drown out the words that never came from the people who should have said them. Funny how they always remember you after the toast, after the lights, after the photos. Too late to matter, too late to be sincere. I set the phone down, went to pour a glass of water, and grabbed my tablet from the kitchen drawer. I meant to review some contracts, clear my head with something objective. Instead, I accidentally tapped the family cloud account, something I hadn't opened in years. There it was, a folder I hadn't seen before. Legacy Moments, Monroe. It was updated just last week. I shouldn't have opened it. But I did. Photos, videos, hundreds of them. Layla's curated timeline of greatness, Christmas parties, charity events, family trips. I kept scrolling, scanning. Then I saw myself. Once, the back of my head, unlabeled, cut mid-frame. It was from a trip I'd planned, paid for, organized down to the restaurant reservations. And yet, I was just a blur in the background. Then I found a document, a draft of Layla's speech. Our struggling sister, a reminder of how far we've come. My hands didn't shake, my breathing didn't change, but something in me settled into stillness, the kind that comes before a storm. I wasn't angry about being excluded anymore. I was angry about being rewritten, softened, simplified, turned into a cautionary tale so someone else could shine. I closed the file, walked to my study, pulled out a box I hadn't opened in years. Inside were letters, old, folded thank you notes from students I'd mentored, cards from women I'd helped restart after layoffs, divorces, burnout. There were no photographers at those moments, no curated albums, but these pages were real. I remembered one of them telling me, "If people only love you when you're small, you were never loved." They needed me to stay small. I needed to stop obliging. I leaned back, let the silence fill the room. Then I opened the voice recorder on my phone. I didn't send it. I wasn't ready. But I wanted to hear the words out loud, just once. You taught me silence. Now I'm fluent in it. But I've also learned volume. I saved the memo, not for them, for me. For years, I thought peace meant avoiding conflict. But sometimes, peace is knowing you won't let yourself disappear again, no matter how loud their applause gets. I stood up, walked past the mirror in the hallway. My reflection looked back with something I hadn't seen in a while, not pride, not pain, just clarity. When you're edited out of history, sometimes you write your own version louder. And then, just when I thought I'd closed the door, Layla came knocking, with a favor. I hadn't changed out of the dress yet. Still smelled like rooftop champagne and too many hollow words. My heels clicked against the hardwood as I stepped inside. No music, no TV, just that kind of silence that shows up when you're done pretending. I stopped by the front hallway. The mail had been slid in while I was gone. Bills, flyers, and one envelope. Heavy stock, ivory. My last name embossed in gold. Monroe Legacy Trust. My first thought wasn't surprise, it was suspicion. Inside was an invitation, formal, elegant, like something you'd see in a museum gala, a private dinner titled Legacy Roundtable, hosted by the board of my father's trust. No +1, no dress code, just a time, a date, and a name list I didn't recognize. Is this an olive branch? Or a setup? I held the card in my hand, unmoving. My eyes shifted to my tablet on the kitchen island, where the family folder from earlier still sat open on screen. Legacy Moments, Monroe. My name wasn't in that folder, but now it's on this invitation. I stood still. Let my breath level out. If I go on my terms. I walked into my study. Hadn't been in there since I moved back into this place. The air felt still, the kind that carries old things not yet settled. I brushed my fingers over the edge of the bookshelves. Plans I'd once drawn, partnerships I'd helped draft. I pulled out a box, one of many. Inside, file folders, blueprints, notes, my handwriting. But Layla's name stamped on more than a few covers. One document caught my eye, the same header from the invitation. Monroe Legacy Roundtable, Strategic Planning Packet. This one had notes in the margins, red ink, Layla's handwriting. I knew her curves and loops like I knew the back of my hand, and in one margin, I saw it, my name, crossed out. In 2 strokes, like I'd never been there. I kept going, found a printed email draft buried beneath the folders. A business summary. It named me, not her, as the primary investor behind a project Dad had touted at the last family gathering. The very one Layla claimed she spearheaded. That invitation wasn't recognition, it was bait, and they wanted me to show up, unknowingly validating what was already mine. I sat down, dialed Rowan. He answered like he always does, warm, a little too steady. You okay? I found something, I said. More like uncovered it. He let me talk. I told him about the email, the scribbled edits, the erased name, mine. You know what this is? He said. They're trying to crown her queen of something you built. He wasn't wrong, but this wasn't about thrones or titles anymore. It was about legacy, the kind you don't inherit, but earn. In families like mine, legacy was often just another word for who got to tell the story. I stood in front of the mirror, practiced the words. I accept the invitation, but I'm not coming for applause. I'm coming to correct the record. I typed the reply, kept it short. I'll attend. I'll bring my own agenda. I hovered over send, then hesitated. All it would take is one click to delete it, one moment of doubt. My mind drifted, back to a picture of me at age 8, in overalls, under the family plane, holding a flashlight while my father cursed at the engine. I wasn't watching, I was learning, helping, belonging, until they decided I didn't. I tapped send. The apartment was still. No applause, no music swell, just the folder still open on my screen. Legacy Moments. Edited, cropped, rearranged. But not mine anymore. I accepted their invitation, but I would not enter their narrative. Chapter 5. The Table. They didn't expect me. At the Madison Club smelled like polished wood and history, the kind built on power, not grace. I arrived at exactly 7 o'clock, not early enough to seem eager, not late enough to be talked about. The valet opened my door, as if unsure whether to greet me formally or cautiously. I suppose my name didn't travel well in these circles anymore. Inside, the doorman paused with his clipboard. Your name, miss? Sarah Monroe. He checked twice, eyes narrowing, then pointed to a faint scribble near the bottom. It's here, written in pencil. I smiled faintly. Figures. Easier to erase. The dining room was all candlelight and pretense. People turned as I walked in. My father's head lifted mid-laugh. The sound died before it reached anyone else. Layla froze, mid-sentence, her smile stiffening like fresh paint in cold air. A waiter dropped a spoon somewhere near the bar. It was that kind of silence. Accidental, unprepared. My father muttered just loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Didn't think she'd actually show. I heard it, of course. I always did. I took my seat at the far end of the table, deliberately placed away from the spotlight, though somehow every glance kept finding me. I adjusted the cuff of my navy suit, the same shade I wore the day I pitched the project they were about to celebrate. The chairman stood at the head of the table. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here as we unveil the next chapter of the Monroe legacy, the Heritage Foundation. Layla rose beside him, glowing in self-importance. This project, she began, is about carrying forward our family's vision, its drive, its unity, its strength. The lights dimmed slightly. A slideshow began on the wall behind them, architectural renderings, timelines, and blueprints. I leaned back in my chair, not moving, watching as piece after piece of my old work flickered by. Then came one that stopped me cold. A blueprint, my layout, my proportions, even the West Wing expansion I'd once called the heartbeat. And there, faint but still visible, my watermark, bottom right corner, SM. My fingers tightened around my glass. I didn't need to glance at Layla to know she'd seen it too. Her voice stumbled for half a second before she caught it again. This, she said, pointing to the projection, was the culmination of years of development and late nights. We all played a role, but vision holds it all together. The applause that followed felt more like habit than approval. I stood slowly, letting the sound die. If you're going to use my vision, I said, steady and calm, at least get the scale of the West Wing correct. The room froze. The chairman blinked. My father's knife clinked against his plate. Layla stared at me, her face draining of color. Excuse me? I walked forward, calm as stone. You heard me. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small silver USB drive. Here, this might help. The technician by the projector looked toward my father for permission. I didn't wait for it. Go ahead, I told him. He hesitated, then inserted the drive. The image on the screen flickered and then shifted. My version appeared. Dated, signed, time-stamped 4 years ago. My initials on every page. Nobody spoke. The silence grew until you could hear the hum of the air vent. This, I said, looking around the room, was the original proposal I submitted to the Monroe Trust. It was rejected. Too expensive, too ambitious, too mine. But I see it found new life. Congratulations. Layla's lips trembled. That's not... I cut her off with a small gesture. Save it. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to set the record straight. My father shifted, voice thick with controlled anger. Sarah, this isn't the place. No, I said. It's exactly the place. You built a whole narrative around contribution, legacy, and unity. I just thought the truth deserved a seat at the table, too. No one dared move. The weight in the room pressed down like a second ceiling. I straightened my jacket. Legacy isn't about whose name is engraved on the plaque. It's about who laid the foundation when nobody was watching. The words hung there. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I placed the printed copy of my plan on the center of the table. I'm not asking for a seat, I said, my tone flat. I'm reminding you whose table this really is. Then I turned and walked away. Each step echoed against the marble, sharp and deliberate. Behind me, someone exhaled. A fork hit a plate. No one followed. They didn't ask me to stay. They didn't have to. I wasn't coming back. But later that night, my phone rang. From a number I thought had long forgotten me and of chapter S signs. It was close to midnight when I walked into my home office, still wearing the heels from the Madison Club dinner. I hadn't even turned on the lamp when the laptop pinged with a new email. Subject line, internal, Monroe team. No name, no greeting, just forwarded text. I clicked. She's only good at funding, not leading. My stomach dropped. It was a reply chain, bouncing between names I knew from the board, names that shook my hand, names that hugged me at family events. They hadn't just written me off. They carved me out like I was nothing more than a checkbook with legs. Then I saw the wording. The sender address was masked, but not well. It came from Layla's team. Her assistant had forwarded this by mistake, or maybe not by mistake at all. I leaned back in my chair. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I read every word, twice. Some lines referenced decisions I'd made years ago, ones we all agreed on at the time. Now they were painted as missteps. Convenient. My hands shook, but not from sadness, from the clarity that comes when the fog lifts. They used my silence to say the things they never dared to speak to my face. The next afternoon, the Monroe estate buzzed with another of our traditional family brunches. Guests milled around the dining room. Laughter was soft, but constant. I spotted my father near the terrace, sipping something amber. I walked over and extended my hand. He looked down at it, then at me, and slowly pulled his own hand back. "I'm sorry, I'm distracted," he mumbled, eyes darting sideways. His smile was too fast, too thin. It was subtle, but intentional. I didn't flinch. I just let my hand drop. "I'm not here for approval." The air thinned. Conversations slowed behind us. Layla watched from across the room, jaw tight. Later that evening, back at my office, I opened the forwarded message again and pulled the server metadata. Every hop, every timestamp. The alias wasn't random. It was linked directly to Layla's assistant, her most trusted shadow. I drafted a short message. "Your finger will be known soon." Then I called Rowan. He listened in silence. "Delara, don't go public yet. Don't move until you're ready to finish it." I stared at the ceiling. Every betrayal hides behind courtesy. I must expose the hands that remain polite. I scheduled a meeting. The next morning, I asked Layla and my father to meet me in the library at the Monroe house. No lawyers, no staff, just us. The room still smelled like old paper and power. Layla walked in first, wearing calm like perfume. My father followed, slower, guarded. I slid a folder across the table. "This message," I said, opening the first page, "was sent through your assistant's alias. Here's the routing, the original IP, the device." Layla's lips parted, but no sound came. My father leaned forward. "Maybe there's a mistake." I raised a hand. "You can delete messages. You cannot delete the truth." Layla reached for the folder, but stopped halfway. The silence filled the room like smoke. No yelling, no accusations, just a slow unraveling of control. I stood. "We will speak again when there's honesty between us." As I walked out, I felt the crack, not in the marble floor, but in them. When the person you trusted splits open like paper, you learn the weight of being one cut away. End of chapter. The boardroom lights flickered on just as dusk settled over the city. From the penthouse windows, you could see the skyline, proud, waiting. I walked into that room carrying nothing but a printed pitch, confidence folded like a shield. I took the seat directly across from Layla and Dad. No showy gesture, just presence. Layla began with polished smiles and praise. "Thank you all for your continued support of our mission. This project would not succeed without each of you." She glanced at me once, meaningfully. I nodded back. Quiet. Observing. Who shifted, who tensed, who avoided my gaze. Rowan's face appeared in the corner screen, silent support. As Layla spoke of our foundation born from nothing, I interrupted. "You keep saying nothing. What do you mean by that?" Her voice faltered. I had already pulled up the file from Chapter 4, the original draft with my name credited. I slid my copy to the center of the table, side by side, her version, mine. The room went cold. Her cheeks lost color. Dad's expression slipped. "You quoted my words," I said, voice measured. "You just forgot who said them first." No one spoke. Glasses rattled. The chairman's face tightened. Then Rowan's window enlarged. He spoke. "I have the emails, the drafts, the timestamps." The room startled. Layla's lips parted. She raised her hand to protest, but the chairman shook his head. "Please present." A shift happened. The silence fractured. Board members exchanged glances. Layla's posture shrank. She looked vulnerable. She had counted on performance. She wasn't ready for truth. I asked to take over the presentation. No permission. I just stood. I clicked to my slides. Full attribution. Original dates. Their faces flickered on the screen. Cameras on their endorsements, their edits. I called it Monroe DeLara Legacy Fund. I quoted Michelle Obama. "When they go low, we rise higher in principle." "I didn't come for revenge," I said. "I came for the record." Some on the board nodded subtly. Others remained frozen, mouths open but no words. I stepped back and placed the folder in front of Layla. The tension was palpable. I let my silence do the work. In that quiet, I didn't just take the mic. I rewrote who gets to speak next. The ballroom pulsed with the illusion of grace. Polished wood beneath my heels, chandeliers above me like a ceiling of lies. I stood still for a moment near the entrance, letting the sound of the orchestra wash over the buzz of laughter and half-truths. Waiters floated by with silver trays of champagne. It was all for show, every polished surface, every tailored tux, every forced smile. Layla was already making the rounds, shaking hands, air-kissing cheeks, her gown catching the light just enough to look effortless. Cameras followed her like dogs. The Monroe legacy, so well packaged, so carefully edited. A few people noticed me. One man's eyes widened before he leaned to whisper something into his wife's ear. She turned, smiled politely, then quickly looked away. That was fine. I wasn't there to be seen. I was there to be remembered. Then came the tribute. The host stepped onto the stage, mic in hand. "Tonight, we honor a name that means something across this country," he began. "A name that built, that inspired, that led with vision. And no one embodies that legacy more than Layla Monroe." Applause, full-bodied, echoing off marble and crystal. I didn't clap. I watched her glide to the microphone, her poise rehearsed to the bone. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. She thought she'd already won. I thought of being 17, sitting in a folding chair backstage while she took the lead in a performance I helped choreograph. I remember whispering to myself, "Next time." I said it 100 times. It took me 20 years to stop believing it. Layla started speaking. "When I look around this room, I see more than faces. I see friends, partners, people who believed in what we built from zero." She stopped. Not a stumble, a freeze. And just like that, the room caught it. Cameras lifted, heads tilted. My heart didn't race. It slowed. Layla cleared her throat. "From zero that we inherited," she corrected, smiling nervously. But the slip was out. The truth always lives in the first version. I locked eyes with my father. He knew. Layla's mistake wasn't just words. It was ownership of a lie. And it cracked the surface of everything they tried to coat in gold. No recovery was coming. The room had tasted blood. That's when the server arrived. He moved quietly, almost invisible, except to me. He placed a small white envelope on Layla's table. "For Ms. Monroe," he said, nodding. Layla looked puzzled, then amused. She opened the envelope slowly, playing to the audience. There was a card. She read it, and her face shifted. Just slightly, but enough. She pulled out the single sheet behind it. Her eyes scanned the words. Then she looked up at me, and I took a step forward. The voided transfer of my equity. I said. My voice didn't rise. And the non-compete clause? That one's dead too. She stood motionless. This is the last check you'll ever cash in my name. A ripple moved through the room like a dropped stone in still water. People murmured. A few gasped. My father's face drained of color. Layla just stared at the document like it might suddenly rewrite itself. The spotlight was still on her. But the power, it had moved. I walked past the rows of tables toward the stage. The orchestra quieted mid-note. No one told them to stop. They just knew. At the mic, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I'm not here for your applause. I let the silence breathe. I'm here so my name's no longer a footnote. That was it. I didn't need to argue or beg or explain. They could fill in the blanks. Every person in that room knew what they'd witnessed. I turned and walked away. Behind me, Layla remained still, as if frozen in a frame she no longer controlled. As I neared the exit, I didn't feel lighter. I felt defined, for once, by my own hand. In that moment, the light shifted, not on me but through me. The city was still waking up when I stepped onto the rooftop, that strange blue hour where the night isn't gone, but morning's already claimed the sky. The air was crisp, a breeze brushing my face like a whisper saying, "You're still here." And I was, still here, standing on the top floor of my own building. No gowns, no lights, no curated applause. Just me, in a hoodie and worn jeans, hands wrapped around a steaming cup of black coffee. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel broken. I felt still. From where I stood, the skyline stretched wide, quiet and proud. I watched as the sun peeled back layers of shadow, one glass pane at a time. I thought about the jet. The moment the wheels lifted from the tarmac, that wasn't about power. That was me letting go of weight. Other people's voices, expectations, myths I no longer agreed to carry. They called it an escape. It wasn't. It was a return. To myself. I used to wear armor. Designer shoes, practiced smiles, contracts in my purse. Now, I stood barefoot on concrete, and that felt more like home. Later that morning, I opened the small drawer I hadn't touched in years. Inside were letters I'd written to no one but myself. Childhood scribbles, teen screams inked in blue pen, paper aged but unburned. One in particular. I remembered that envelope, 14 years old. I'd written it after sitting alone on the steps of the auditorium, recital makeup smudged from crying. I had danced anyway, hoping he might walk in late. "Why didn't you come?" I'd written. "Just once. I wanted to see you clap." I laid the old letter on my desk, pulled out a blank page. "He couldn't show up," I wrote, because he never learned how to show up for himself. I didn't cry. I didn't tear it. I folded the reply neatly, slipped it in the back of the drawer, and closed it. I wasn't trying to forget anymore. I was just done hurting. Forgiveness doesn't always need an audience. A knock on the door pulled me back. Josh stood there, holding 2 coffees and trying to act casual. "You good?" he asked, with that soft discomfort young men get when trying to ask about feelings. "I'm more than okay," I said. "I'm finally real." He didn't get it fully, but he smiled anyway. On my desk behind him, my laptop pinged. An email. The subject line just said, "Can we talk?" From Layla. I didn't delete it. I didn't open it either. Some things don't need responses. Some stories end with silence, not screams. Josh handed me a small frame. "Found this in the printer," he mumbled. Inside was a quote. "What you walk away from defines what you stand for." I nodded. "It's going on the wall." The hallway outside buzzed softly. My team was gathering. We weren't running a corporation. We were building a movement, Women reclaiming the finance space, one line of code, one signature, one brave refusal at a time. The room had maybe 15 people, some interns, a few veterans. They looked up when I stepped in. I didn't speak long. "We're not rewriting the rules," I told them. "We're writing our own story." I paused. "No more waiting for the table. We build one." They clapped, but not like crowds do. This wasn't performance, it was recognition. A friend from college snapped a quick picture, not for press, just for us. Then, as I walked back toward my office, the front desk buzzed. "Package for you," they said. There was no name on the envelope, no return address, just my name in handwriting I hadn't seen since. I opened it slowly. Inside were a pair of ballet shoes, scuffed but cleaned, pink ribbons neatly tied, and a card. "She always danced better without a stage." No signature, no explanation. I didn't need one. I held the shoes in my hands for a long time, not mourning, just remembering. Then I set them gently by the window. And just like that, I walked back into the world, barefoot, but finally steady.